When Officer Diller was shot, is being held without bail after pleading not guilty today. Jones had been out of jail on a $75,000 bond at the time of the shooting. Jones now faces 15 years if convicted in this case. He also faces 15 years for a separate unrelated charge of robbery with a deadly weapon. The United States homicide rate is in decline in the most populous cities across the country, according to data compiled by 8H Data Analytics. In 208 cities, the nationwide homicide rate is 20% lower than in 2024 than it was the same time last year. If this remains constant for the rest of the year, it would be the largest one-year decline by percentage going back to 1960. And it would even approach 2014's record as the lowest murder rate during that time period. In rural areas, a dementia diagnosis poses extra hurdles. That's the basis of a new study out of Washington State University that shows the disparities in healthcare that stem from where a patient lives. The National Desk's Kelly Koopmans has a look at the far-reaching impact.
Living in a small or rural town can have detrimental effects for people living with dementia.
They are impacted by living in kind of neurology deserts.
That's the finding of a new study of 95,000 Washington State residents led by Solma Zamiri in the WSU Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine. The study found people who lived in small towns were about 88 miles away from a neurologist. Those in rural areas were 100 miles away from the nearest neurologist. Compare that to people who lived in urban areas who were within 9 miles of a specialist. Well, that difference could mean a delayed diagnosis of dementia and, in turn, higher costs of care, reduced chances of preserving cognitive function, and lower quality of life.
Some of the racial and ethnic minorities, which constitutes of American Indian, Alaska Natives, and Hispanics, they have a large representation in rural areas.
Amiri says this research can help inform placement of future medical resources, such as neurological practices, placing those resources in neurology deserts, and increasing access to telehealth.
Kelly Koopmans reporting there. And coming up, what comes next now that the House of Representatives has sent articles of impeachment to the Senate over Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas? Then how the U.S. is responding to Iran's retaliatory attack on Israel over the weekend. And later, why a debate about whether homeless people can be ticketed for sleeping in public has made its way to the Supreme Court. We'll be right back. You're taking a live look at the U.S. Capitol, where just hours ago, the GOP-led House sent articles of impeachment to the Senate over Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' handling of the southern border. This is just the second time in U.S. history that a cabinet member has been impeached by the House. Tonight, a closer look at what's being alleged and how Democrats are responding.
The resolution is adopted.
2 months after voting to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas,
ready to present the articles of impeachment.
House Republicans have now officially presented the impeachment articles to the Senate. House Speaker Mike Johnson making clear that the southern border remains the #1 priority for House Republicans.
Secretary Mayorkas has invited this catastrophe into our cities and our states. He and Joe Biden engineered this catastrophe.
In the 2 articles of impeachment, House Republicans have charged Secretary Mayorkas with, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors for repeatedly failing to enforce border security and immigration laws. Article 1, willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law, and Article 2, breach of public trust. Secretary Mayorkas has continuously defended himself, stating during a House Homeland Security hearing on Tuesday that his department has toughened border enforcement.
Is the border secure, Mr. Secretary, today?
With the authorities and the funding that we have, it is as secure as it can be.
Democrats insist Mayorkas has not committed high crimes or misdemeanors and are calling this a politically motivated sham.
Impeachment should never be used to settle a policy disagreement. This would set an awful precedent for Congress.
But Republicans insist Mayorkas is responsible for the border crisis and should be removed from office.
9.4 million illegal aliens have crossed on Joe Biden's watch. Alejandro Mayorkas has done Joe Biden's bidding. He has been that foot soldier. He has lied to Congress. He has lied to the American people.
As for next steps, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the chamber will convene on Wednesday as a court of impeachment and members will be sworn in as jurors. He stated, quote, we want to address this issue as expeditiously as possible. Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie said he will co-sponsor Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion to vacate the chair unless House Speaker Mike Johnson resigns. Johnson says he isn't following that route.
The motion is going to get called, okay? Does anybody doubt that? The motion will get called, and then he's going to lose more votes than Kevin McCarthy. And I have told him this in private, like weeks ago.
I am not resigning, and it is, in my view, an absurd notion that someone would bring a vacate motion when we are simply here trying to do our jobs.
Several Democrats have indicated they may save Johnson if the motion to vacate is called, but it's unclear if enough of them will do so to keep the speaker in his chair. The U.S. is preparing fresh sanctions for Iran. That's according to what a Treasury official has told NBC News as a response to Iran's retaliatory attack on Israel that happened over the weekend when Iran fired hundreds of drones and missiles at Israel in response to Israel's attack on an Iranian consulate in Syria that killed 2 senior Iranian generals. And tonight, Israel's war cabinet continues to have high-stake discussions on how to respond to Iran's attack over the weekend. CNN reporting tonight that the U.S. expects Israel's reaction will be, quote, limited in scope, but that there is U.S. intelligence to suggest the strike would happen inside Iran to respond in kind. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has warned that the smallest action against Iran's interests will be met with a severe, extensive, and painful response. Tonight, we are learning the House will vote on Friday on a foreign aid bill that allows House members to vote on aid to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan on an individual basis. The strategy allows for Speaker Mike Johnson to assemble fragile coalitions around each bill after GOP members indicated they would not sign off on a comprehensive bill like the $95 billion package the Senate passed. Democrats say they fear this will only serve to delay aid being dispersed to U.S. allies at a time of war. Volkswagen employees in Chattanooga, Tennessee are voting this week on whether to join the United Auto Workers Union. This could lead to a big win for UAW, which has been trying to organize 13 automakers in addition to GM, Ford, and Stellantis. Over 4,000 VW workers will be able to vote tomorrow through 8 p.m. on Friday. A simple majority will determine the outcome. The balance of power is at stake today in Michigan's State House, with 2 special elections being held. Due to these vacancies, the legislature is currently tied 54-54 between Democrats and Republicans. Both seats up for grabs are in the suburbs of Detroit and have historically leaned Democratic. The Republicans last held control of the Michigan House in 2022. Maine is joining 16 other states and Washington, D.C. to possibly elect future presidents by popular vote. Under the proposed compact, each state would designate all of its electoral votes to whoever wins the national vote, regardless of how each state votes. In order to take effect, the compact needs 270 electoral votes, and Maine's votes bring it to 209. So this measure is non-binding for now. Maine's Governor Janet Mills has allowed this legislation to become law without her signature. A new implantable device could help save lives. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains how it keeps the heart beating strong.
Hey there, everybody. What you are looking at here is a new device that could help reduce the odds of sudden cardiac death in those at risk due to abnormal heart rhythm problems.
When your heartbeat speeds up or starts beating in a dangerous pattern, as this animation provided by Medtronic shows, you can be at risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Dr. Christian Hayes, the director of electrophysiology at Kentucky's St. Elizabeth Healthcare, says this Aurora EV ICD system, which stands for Extravascular Implantable Cardioverter Defibrillator, is designed to keep you alive.
If your heart stops from a cardiac arrhythmia, this will shock the heart back into normal rhythm.
What makes it different than other ICDs is that traditionally ICD leads are threaded through a vein into the heart.
This device is not inside the heart. It sits on top of the heart, and we're able to treat the heart that way.
The Aurora EV ICD system then potentially reduces the risk of injury to the vein or heart.
We implant this lead behind the sternum, directly on the heart, and that allows us to have a few extra functions.
One of those functions is called ATP, or anti-tachycardia pacing. It can sort of reset an irregular heart rhythm without the painful shocks normally delivered by an ICD.
It looks simple, but it provides a lot of great technology.
Now, this device also recommended even if a person has already had a previous heart attack or a sudden cardiac arrest. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
President Biden's latest student loan cancellation plan is moving right along. The Educational Department filing paperwork today for a new regulation. It would cover what Biden announced last week, loan forgiveness or reduction for more than 25 million Americans who fall under certain categories. The rule will go through a 30-day public comment period and review before it is finalized. And the Army and Air Force, they are both on track to meet recruitment goals after several challenging years. Army officials tell the Associated Press they are optimistic about hitting their 55,000 enlistment goal. Army recruitment fell short of its 60,000 goal in 2023. Officials say the Army has about 5,000 more contracts at this point when compared to last year. The Air Force is also making progress and just increased its enlistment target. The Justice Department is preparing to file an antitrust lawsuit against Ticketmaster's parent company, Live Nation Entertainment. According to the Wall Street Journal, sources close to the matter say it could happen in the coming weeks. They say the department would accuse Live Nation of using its high market dominance to undermine competing ticket sellers. Coming up, college enrollment is on the decline. The latest numbers and reasons right after this. have reporters all across the country covering issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
The numbers are fairly dramatic across the country. There were 14.7 million university students nationwide in 2014. In 2023, that number dropped to 13.9 million, down nearly 10%. In Ohio, it went from 419,000 students down to 356,000, a 15% decrease. The main reason, say higher education experts, the education cliff. Population trends like the number of children the baby boomers had decreasing, and migration trends as people moved out of the Midwest towards the coasts. Another reason for the drop is pure economics, the price of four-year universities compared to a technical education.
The U.S. Supreme Court is set to decide whether to overturn a 2020 landmark federal ruling that could determine how cities nationwide handle homeless people who are sleeping in public spaces. The case originated in Grants Pass, Oregon. The 2020 federal ruling stops cities from citing homeless people for sleeping in public spaces when there are not enough low-barrier shelter beds to house them. Ed Johnson, the lawyer representing homeless people in Grants Pass, says if the Supreme Court overturns the ruling, there will be big repercussions nationwide.
CNN sophomore Aaliyah Ibarra says it was a surreal experience after finding out the Clark County Athletic Conference trophy for local rec leagues across the valley was named in her honor.
I couldn't believe that someone held me to such a high standard to where they wanted to, honor an award to me. So, yeah, it was super special.
Ibarra says that type of recognition is what other star players get, like the Las Vegas Aces, who've had tremendous success over the years, a team Ibarra says she may one day like to play for.
Whatever happens, happens, but that would be cool if I could play for the Aces. To seeing them now, how they're doing, it's crazy, and it's amazing to see the growth, and just they're inspiring so many young girls too, and especially within the Las Vegas community.
Take a look at this. The traditional Olympic torch relay now underway after the flame was lit today in Olympia, Greece, ahead of the 2024 Games. Greek rowing champion Stefanos Douskos passed the flame to French Olympic medalist Lori Monaudo. 600 torch bearers will now carry the flame more than 3,000 miles for 3 weeks as they travel to France. The opening ceremony kicking off in Paris on July 26th. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for joining.